Hello, welcome to IIGC 2019 and we have Mr. Cameron Alexander with us. He is from GFMS Refinity. So first I would like to ask him a question like, so what about the gold outlook this time in the market?
Look, I think we're still very bullish for gold. I think if you look at the macro drivers, they haven't really changed a great deal. So I think they still point to a much higher price looking forward. I think our forecast for gold is that we'll see continued higher prices in the next couple of years.
Okay.
So I think the market is still very positive for the outlook. Quite across the precious metal space, really. So gold and particularly silver as well, we can see some upside.
Beautiful. So what do you see as from the demand perspective? What do you have to say about from the demand perspective?
Look, I think we've seen a bit of a pullback in the last month or so because of the higher price, particularly on the jewellery side. So there was quite a price shock when gold prices pushed through 1400. We saw demand in China particularly fall quite sharply. Here in India also demand was quite weak. And right through Southeast Asia generally we saw a big drop in demand in June, which dragged down what was a reasonably good quarter for the second quarter of the year.
Yeah.
So overall, we saw, I think the price impact now is having quite a negative impact on demand. But that may change as the market becomes used to this higher price level.
How about the silver, silver sector? What would you like to?
Yeah, look, on a fundamental point of view, obviously silver is driven by sort of the macroeconomic factors as well, and it's pulled higher by movements in the gold price. But on a fundamental level, silver on the industrial side, it still remains quite weak this year. The PV or photovoltaic sector has been quite impacted over the last 8 to 12 months, and we expect to see further weakness this year in the PV sector. If you look at other areas in terms of electronics demand, for example, in silver, the trade war between China and the US is actually having quite a negative impact on that sector. So we expect to see weakness across the industrial sector generally. So electronics would be one of the worst affected areas, but also PV would also be weaker. We are seeing some demand for silver investment products this year, and we've seen an increase more recently in the second quarter for coin demand in the US.
Okay.
So that's bounced back quite nicely.
That's beautiful, and the way gold has been always dominating factor. If you see the silver demand is expanding, then it's a good thing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the silver and gold has a very tight correlation. So I think we do see movements in the gold price, and that's what we expect. I think silver prices will also benefit from that to a certain extent.
Do you also lead in the sectors of platinum and palladium? You can talk about something on platinum and palladium?
Yes, sure. I mean, I think we expect to see sort of more upside on perhaps the palladium price. I think there's on the fundamental point of view, palladium remains in a sizable deficit. So I think in looking forward, I think we see prices will be well supported. I think platinum's also been well supported by investors in the last month or so. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that continue for the rest of the year. I mean, the platinum market is more stabilised. I mean, we might see a slight deficit this year, but more likely to be a slight surplus. But I think we've seen some fairly good upside in recent month or so. That could also be continued in the next 6 months.
So talking about on the perspective of gold, I would like to. Where do you see another 3 years if you do an analysis of it? Where do you see gold in the next 3 years, and keeping in mind the situation of India with the monetary policies which are coming for the gold?
It's going to be hard to forecast something that far ahead, but I would say that if we're looking at today's prices, and I think for this year we have an average of say 1350. I think we're going to be looking at an average, more like 1410, sort of in that sort of range, 1450, in 2011 or 2021 rather. So I think the outlook is for high gold prices, and that's really going to be driven by sort of a rise in investment demand. I think the jewellery demand is probably going to stay relatively stable, if not fall a little bit on a higher price level. But it'll be investors that come into the market, so the ETF demand particularly, and also coins and investment bars will see gold prices being well supported.
So then how was your experience with IIGC?
It's always great to come back. I think I've now come many years in a row now, and I think it's lovely to see the same old faces. It's a great place to learn what's happening in the local market here, and the Indian market has been changing so quickly over the last few years. So it's really important that we're here to touch base with the major suppliers and major traders to understand the challenges that they're going through, but also to understand what the Indian market's all about.
Beautiful. We expect you to every time come down like this, being so enthusiastic.
Absolutely.
And see you at the dinner then.
Look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much.